All right. Robbyn Scribner, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks so much for having me. Super excited to talk to you.
I'm sure that many of our audience are going to be familiar with you and your background. But for those that don't know, you are the co-founder of Tech Moms. You've got a long history prior to that of a lot of really great work. We're going to dive into that. But as of right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the what occupies the majority of your time and probably I would imagine some of the most impactful work you're doing is with Tech Moms, correct?
Yes, absolutely. That's my full-time primary role. I dabble here and a few other things here and there where I'm helping out with some volunteer things, but my main work is with Tech Moms.
Excellent. And I reached out to you. I think you've been on my radar for a little bit. We've had Trina Celeste on the show, quote unquote, air quotes for those of you who are listening, not watching. So I've been aware of you, but your nomination for a WTC award was one of the big catalysts for me to reach out. Congratulations on the nomination. That's fantastic. But we had an opportunity to connect briefly at Silicon Slopes, and you reiterated to me that you're not a techie, and
Right.
I'm not either. I'm a technical recruiter. So two relative lay people, though I imagine you've got a little bit better understanding of the tech.
Who knows about that?
Yeah. Well, I think we're in a similar boat. I am curious though. There's a lot of themes in your career that I've noticed. Writing is one for sure, but the one I really want to talk about today is the empowering women. That seems to have been a theme throughout your career, and I'm curious what, if anything, inspired you to pursue a career of women empowerment.
Oh, I don't even know if anything, like if any one thing did really inspire me. It wasn't until I went back to work. So I took a long career break. I have 6 kids. I was home for a lot of years. And during that time, I was always working with women and helping women, actually doing so much similar to what I'm doing now at Tech Moms, helping women find jobs, chart a career pathway, solve some of the financial and workplace challenges that they had in their lives. But when I went back to work for Susan Madsen, that was my first paid job after a long career break of 15 years. I went back to work at the Utah Women in Leadership Project. I started as a research assistant for Susan. And that's the only thing in the world that would have pulled me back into the workforce at that time. I had 6 kids. My oldest was 15. My youngest was 3. They were all super busy. My husband was launching a startup that I was helping out with. Like, I was up to my eyeballs every second. I didn't have a spare minute in my life. And there's no way I was looking for a job or looking to get back to work, and I saw a job position that Susan had posted, and I just knew that I had to go for it. And because I was so passionate about helping women. But once I went back to work for Susan, I realized that throughout my life, this has actually been the theme of my life. In college, all the papers that I wrote were about women. I remember writing a paper in history that won a History of the Family award because it was about women. So it had to be about family, but about Russian women's fairy tales. And my honors thesis and my master's thesis, like, I was always passionate about women's stories, women's lives, and the way that so much of that translated into the work I'm doing now is I've always really, really cared about women's ability to be financially independent and financially secure. And that really comes from having access to great jobs. And again, I've got 6 kids. I took a 15-year career break. I understand that working full time and putting your career first is not possible or even desirable for so many people. There are probably lots of men who don't want to put their career first either, but maybe somebody's got to do it. And so always I was very, very interested in understanding how we could create a better ecosystem in our professional companies, our businesses, our workplaces that better supported women so they could manage the ins and outs of their careers, the back and forth of I need to take a break. Now I'm ready to lean in super heavy at my job. My kids are a little older or more independent. I mean, there are so many different ebbs and flows to a woman's career and to her family life, right? To all aspects of her life. And so um, once I worked with Susan for about 5 years and said, I really, really want to pivot over and work specifically on workforce development. And so I am living my dream right now, which is helping women find jobs. This is what I've always wanted to do. And I've done it, piecemeal here and there, but the opportunity to help women discover their passion, discover where they want to go, what's going to be a great career for them and a great opportunity for them. And then the day I get the Slack message, which I get them all the time, for one of my tech moms who messaged me and said, I got a job today. Like, it is the best feeling in the world. So Scotty, I'm living the dream right here at Tech Moms.
It's awesome. It really is incredible. And as I mentioned, we've had Trina Celeste on when the iteration of this program, so to speak, was LinkedIn Live. I'm actually in the middle of her book right now, where she kind of talks a little bit about her inspiration and how everybody that she talked to about empowering women kept pointing her back to you. I'm curious, like what's your side of that story, if you're willing to kind of quickly share?
Well, the main thing that I share is that I'm always trying to emphasize to my tech moms how important LinkedIn is. And the
Mm.
story I tell all the time is tech moms exist because of LinkedIn, right? I found Trina on LinkedIn. She was posting women's stuff. I was posting women's stuff. And I'm like, dude, she lives really close to me. I should go meet this woman and go have lunch with her. And we did. And I just shared with her my passion and dedication to helping women with workforce reentry. And then she got connected with our other partner, Mikkel Blake, who also was not even living in Utah. She was in the Bay Area. And she said, I want to launch Tech Moms. Who should I talk to? And she started reaching out, and everybody said, you go talk to Trina, because Trina's a lot more famous than I am. So everybody knew who Trina was. But luckily, Trina and I had found each other on LinkedIn. And so when Mikkel said, I want to do workforce reentry, Trina said, I know who else we need to bring into this situation. And that's how the three of us found each other. So we are so grateful. It is really a wonderful partnership. We have really complementary strengths. Trina is so different from me temperamentally. She just is like, go, go, go. And I'm like, hold on, hold on, hold on, right? I always want to research everything and talk to everybody and make sure we've got all our ducks in a row. And Trina's like, let's just dive in. And so, and Mikkel's a little bit in between the two of us. So it works really well. We're so lucky to have found each other, and our complementary strengths have really created the success that Tech Moms has been so far.
Yeah, and it has, right? I think just for what it's worth, we're something that we're very passionate about here at Kista IT. I've been talking to Sarah, your outplacement coordinator. Definitely trying. It's funny. I've tried to introduce you to some of our clients, and a lot of our clients are like, "Oh yeah, we're familiar. Yeah, we already have a relationship." But the more we can get that message out, the better, because it really is phenomenal. It's funny that you're speaking to a recruiter, so I've got my biases. I've got what's near and dear to my heart. You mentioned LinkedIn immediately. I'm like, oh, okay, great. This is such a good segue into, networking. And networking is, in the tech world, what I've learned, Robbyn, is that it's kind of a dirty word. So
I
yeah.
don't even understand that. Like, what's wrong with those people? Networking is literally amazing. It's the best thing in the world.
Well, you're likely talking to a technical audience, so I hope they take your word for it.
Sorry,
I don't
everybody.
disagree, and I think it's the word, right? It's the connotation of the word networking. In fairness, it's a little contrived. At the end of the day, it's about establishing and building relationships, right? We have to like give it a business jargony name. Having said all of that, I am a professional networker, and I would love to hear your thoughts on any strategies you recommend, especially for those that are like uncomfortable with the word networking and the concept.
Oh yes. Well, okay. So I'm not one to shy away from names that people don't like, right? And so I'm totally on board with networking. But I give a presentation that's called 10 Things We Hate About Networking. And I have this picture of Julia Stiles and Heath Ledger up there from the 10 Things I Hate About You movie. And I don't really do 10 things because that would be a super long presentation. But I do talk about 3 things that so many people hate and dread about networking. And the very first thing we talk about is the definition, like you just mentioned. And I keep it even simpler than that. Networking is just making friends, right? It's getting to know new people and just making friends. And we have so many cool, amazing people in our Utah tech scene that I hope more people can be comfortable with that. Our tech moms have like dived in with 2 feet. Is it dove or dived? Who knows? They've gone all the way in to say, okay, I'm ready to meet new people and familiarize myself with this new professional landscape. So the 3 things that I talk about in my 10 things we hate about networking speech is, first of all, the fear, right? We feel uncomfortable, we feel awkward. And so I have some good recommendations of how we get past the fear. The main one is to just remember that people are people and that
Mm,
everybody feels the same way and we're all a little bit awkward. And no matter how scared we are, we have to do it anyway. Right. So that's the first one, is getting past the fear. The second one I call the ick factor. And I have this great picture of this silkwood shower in my slides, right? Like, I hate going into this situation and thinking I'm making friends with this person so they can give me a job. That's
mm.
stupid, right? Of course, that's not what we're doing. If that's what we're doing, then you should hate networking and you're not really networking, right? You're just doing something yucky and uncomfortable. So we talk about the fact that we're building long-term relationships, that networking is always reciprocal. And one of the things that I talk to so many women about, they're like, well, I don't have anything to add. I've been home for 15 years. I don't know anybody. I don't have any skills. And I help women uncover, it's one of my superpowers, actually. I help women uncover the things that they have to bring to every situation. So I help women remember, I have so much to bring. I am part of a reciprocal relationship because I am a valuable human being that can bring so much. And then the third thing that we hate about networking is the lack of time. And so I encourage people to forgive themselves, recognize that you could never go to every event that you could go to. You'll never have time to do all these things. You'll never remember to follow up with all the people that you met at Silicon Slopes, even though we can really try hard to do it. I never get that far. But just to recognize, if we set goals and priorities and really find a way to be strategic in our networking so that our relationships are authentic and we are bringing something to the table and willing to ask others for help, we will find that it is so, so rewarding. Networking is my number one thing. All my tech moms know I get after them about networking all the time. It is the single most important thing that we can do to build a successful career. And I will say that to the end of my days.
Wow. I mean, again, you are preaching to the choir here. I am, again, a professional networker. I have the bias toward it, but I think it's imperative to hear it coming from you rather than somebody like myself. I think, perhaps the first key there, overcoming the fear, that second key you mentioned is really important in that, and remembering what you bring to the table. Any other tips? Because I do think that's the biggest. I'm an extrovert, Robbyn. It would not
Extreme,
surprise me.
extreme extrovert, all the way to the side of the
Yes,
scale.
yes, yes, indeed. In fact, I think I'm likewise, right? So for you and I, okay, Robbyn, okay, Scotty, easier said than done. Like for
Yes.
you guys, it's so easy. You're 98% extrovert on the Myers-Briggs scale. Of course, it's going to be easy for you to just go and have a conversation or whatever it might be. Any tips for those that are introverted? And again, you're working with people who tech moms, right? They're going into a career in technology. Oftentimes, it's a stereotype. I'm going to be a little careful, but oftentimes engineers or those that are technically kind of I'm blanking on the right word here, but inclined, right?
Yeah.
They're probably closer to the introverted scale. Tips or tricks for those folks?
Yeah, I've given some workshops on this as well, networking for introverts. And again, I feel a little bit hypocritical, but I try to have empathy, right? I try to understand what it's like. And do you know what? Anybody could go up and read a bunch of articles. There are lots of great tips, but a couple things that I'd start with. First of all, remembering that people love to talk about themselves. Most people,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not all introverts love to talk about themselves, but many people that you would find at a networking event actually love to talk about themselves. An introvert's superpower is listening, right? So you can go up to a situation. You don't have to say anything about yourself. If you can ask a couple good questions, you have this person like talk to you and tell you all about themselves for 15 minutes. And then you're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. It was super great to meet you. And then you walk away and you didn't have to say anything. And they're like, Robbyn is so cool. I really like her. Because I just sat there and let them talk for 10
Yeah.
minutes, right? So listening is huge. There are a bunch of other little tips like bring a friend, right? Networking with friend, if you're going to an event or something like that, makes it so much easier. Give yourself a plan, like be ready with a drink, do something with your hands. There are a few other things that are just like practical tips. that make it feel less awkward. But the other thing that I would say for introverts is to always give yourself a little bit of a stretch. So you can make a goal and say, I'm going to go to this event. I'm going to stay for 30 minutes, right? That's all I can handle. But give yourself that 30 minutes, pat yourself on the back, and then the next time go for 40 minutes. Like give yourself a little bit more. If this time you're going to talk to 6 people, next time talk to 8 people. I think those little stretch goals really help us out. Keep them manageable, but then recognize I can do this. And the truth is, many introverts are wonderful at networking because they
Absolutely.
recognize that if you find a good conversation, you can really get into it with somebody, right? And then instead of like me, that you've got thousands of really superficial connections, which are great, and also there's huge power in those. I'm not
Sure.
joking. Like the strength of weak ties
Weak
is real,
ties.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. But at the same time, those introverts who've got 20 super deep connections, that's going to bring tons of value to them as well. And so recognizing there are lots of different ways to network, and you need to find the way that works for your personality, who you really are, and how you want to connect with other people.
I love it. Those are, I think those are phenomenal tips. I think, you're talking about leaning into some discomfort, and that really is it for you and I, we've got those things too, right? Obviously, it's a little bit different. We're not going to necessarily feel super uncomfortable in a networking event, but there are other things, of course. But if you're leaning into that discomfort, that's how you're going to grow. So try to lean into that. I think those are super practical tips for the introverts that are going to be a little bit on just a little, how do I do it? It's easy for you to say. I think that that's super helpful. So thank you for that. And I'm actually, you know what I want to do? We talked a little bit about the plan for today, Robbyn, at the top, well, before we started recording. And I want to pivot because it's obvious to me that you're going to bring a lot of value in some of these areas that it seems like you're so well versed. One of the things that I had planned to ask you about today was, how you've incorporated, and this is going to be another business buzzword, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're going to talk specifically about women, right? But there's one area on your LinkedIn profile that I wanted to dig into on this particular topic, and that is engaging male allies. And my hope is I'm going to learn something today as well on this. But do you mind speaking, maybe a little bit more pointed about that, and then maybe a little more broadly about, obviously everything you're doing is incorporating DEI, but anything specific you want to speak to that besides engaging male allies?
Yes. So I love this topic. It's one of my favorites, and I give a lot of presentations and workshops on male allyship. It my own experience with this goes back to a research study that I did as part of the Utah Women in Leadership Project, again working with Susan Madsen. We did a big research study where we sent out a survey to about 80 men and a couple hundred women, and we asked the men, "What do you do to be a great ally to women in your professional life?" And we asked women, what do men do that is really effective in their allyship behaviors? And it was really exciting, fun to see. One of the things that we saw was that the men's answers of what they saw as their being their most effective allyship behaviors were different from the ones that women said were the most effective. That was super eye opening to us. The men talked about, of course, mentoring. They talked about incorporating HR processes because a lot of men are leaders and have an influential voice in their company. So they can say, oh, yeah, for sure, let's have some good maternal leave policies. Let's have flexible work, all these other things, right? They talked about a lot of those types of more formal situations. And the women did also list developmental relationships as the highest thing. So, mentoring, sponsoring, coaching, all these other things, so beneficial. But the women talked about personal moments like he helped me have confidence, he gave me recognition in public but also in private just by telling me like, you did such a great job on that presentation. I'm so proud to share that with the rest of the team and show everybody what you did, right? One woman said, because my male ally believed in me, it made me believe in myself. Now, this goes to a way bigger issue with confidence and how women are, our confidence is beat out of us, and about puberty. And then we have to, scratch our way back to being confident again as we grow into adulthood. That's a much bigger conversation. But the main takeaway that I have about male allies is that the most important thing a man can do who wants to be an ally to the women at his workplace is ask good questions and then actually listen to the answers. Because you might have some ideas of, oh, I can be such a great ally. This is what I'm going to do, which is not actually what she wants. And so and then really, really listen. Because sometimes when we ask a question, we hear the answer we expect to hear and the answer that we want to hear. But if we really dig down deep and listen to the answer that's actually coming, we will be so much more effective and successful. I want to say one more thing about male allyship. I love that so many men are super interested and invested in wanting to be allies. And I also want to say that it feels scary for men to do this, right? Especially since Me Too. That has been a huge, that actually was a huge fly in the ointment for mentoring and all these other things. A bunch of men, Harvard Business Review did a study after Me Too that a bunch of men said, I am now more hesitant to mentor an attractive woman, a young woman, things like this. So that's a whole lot of garbage and really, really frustrating. But the other thing besides that Me Too fear is just something that we all feel. I feel this all the time in my attempts to be an ally, is that I'm going to do it wrong, that I'm going to say the wrong thing, that I'm going to use a term incorrectly, that I'm somehow going to be condescending when I'm trying to be supportive, right? Like there are these fears, and it feels easier to say, instead of really diving in to this tricky conversation, and this has to do with everything that we're doing in DEI, is to say, I'm just going to I'm going to stand back so I don't do it wrong. And I do this myself all the time. Like when I want to be an ally to my friend who's a different race, I worry that I'm going to do it wrong, right? So this is something we all feel. I have led a bunch of men only male ally workshops where we have like this super safe room where guys can just say, is this the right term I'm supposed to use? Is this a good way to do this? Is this a good way to approach this? And I'm like a neutral party because I'm not on their team or whatever. I'm coming from the outside. And so I can be super honest with them and say, do you know what? That sounded a little bit dodgy. Why don't you phrase it this way? So I'm like a sounding board. Um, and so I understand that it's scared. And so I would tell any guy who's listening to this who wants to be a better ally, go ahead and do it scared. Go ahead and do it anyway. Even though you might do it wrong, you're going to say some things wrong. Be open to the feedback, be a little bit humble, and recognize that when you're doing something difficult, you're going to make some mistakes. But this is work that is worth doing no matter what, even if we do it wrong. If you're sincere, the women that you're working with will recognize that. They'll help mentor you a little bit in your allyship behaviors, and then we're all going to come out so much stronger and more successful in everything that we do. Scotty, can you believe how much I can talk? You're just like, you ask one question, then I'm like, 15 minutes later, I just go for it. So anyway,
So
yeah,
we
you didn't
call
know what
this
you were
great
getting into.
content,
You didn't
Robbyn.
know what you were
That's
getting into when you invited me on here.
no, I more probably than any other question I'm going to ask, I want to make sure that I do listen and take as much of the time as you want to, Robbyn, because I do think, just in complete candor, and I absolutely have felt some of that as as a man who wants to be an ally and considers myself an ally. There is a little bit of like, okay, well, am I doing this right? And to your point, I think in some ways, again, extrovert here, right? I'm just going to ask. I'm going to ask the women on my team. I'm going to ask for feedback. And I might even go so far as to say, like, hey, I was afraid that this might be how you took that. And hopefully, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
but I get there's risk to that in a professional environment. I think that level of humility and vulnerability is probably what we need to do as men a little bit more. And we're getting there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And
So
it's gonna be a long journey. We're all learning together. So I love that you're willing to do it, that asking, like, and even after the fact, you had a funny look on on your face when I said this thing. Did I use a weird word? Did I say that in a way that wasn't great? And if you've got a good relationship, if you're willing to lay the foundation with great relationships, you will get the feedback you want, and then you'll be able to be more effective. So I love that.
yeah, I think expressing vulnerability is a quick way. I don't want to say quick. It's a good way to get to trust,
100%.
right? Is kind of it my personal experience. Anyhow, no, I appreciate all of the valuable things you're saying, Robbyn, and please talk away as much as you want.
There we go.
Okay, let's talk. Well, going back again, just before we move on it, because this is the theme, right? The theme is empowering women in the workplace. So we're talking about DEI all along, but do you have any broader things to say about the kind of the label we've assigned to this and how it's being executed out in the workplace these days?
So DEI is a little bit of a tricky term right now because it has been politicized, right? And so there are rough conversations happening all over the country. There's been a lot of pushback on DEI. So maybe instead of using that term, let's just use a little bit of a broader term to talk about what it gets to have a sense of belonging and to have broad representation across our organizations. That is one of our number one goals at Tech Moms. First of all, the research is super clear. Whether or not the term DEI is a little bit dicey right now, the research has been clear going way back that diverse teams are more successful teams, right? And everybody I think recognizes this, even though they know that it's hard to get to and sometimes they don't want to do the work. We understand just sort of inherently, if we get a bunch of different viewpoints and perspectives as we're making decisions, we're going to make better decisions, right? So that's an easy sell for me to make when I'm talking to companies and saying, let's boost their broad representation of having people from all different sorts of backgrounds on your teams, right? That's super important. But then when we get to the question of belonging, it gets a little bit more tricky because that is hard. We all have so many biases. I have unconscious bias. Everybody does. We have affinity for people who are like us. We love to watch people succeed when we say, oh, I remember when I was in that same place and now look what she's doing, right? We all have that. And so finding the way to, and I loved what you just said about how vulnerability is a great pathway to trust. Um, I don't remember what I was just reading just a couple of days ago, but someone was talking about the fact that if we have even like a 10-minute conversation with someone, it's really hard to dislike them. Unless they're really horrible and everything they say just makes us dislike them more. But that's pretty rare. Like most people are awesome, even if they have different political views, different social views, different religious views. Most people are awesome. And so if we can find a way within our conversations, within our teams, within our communities to be open to listening to people's stories, learning about their backgrounds, understanding what motivates them and what makes them tick, we are going to overcome some of our own biases and be more willing to say, do you know what? That woman had a 10-year career break, but actually, in talking to her, I heard about all the amazing things that she was doing, and I understand she's going to be a huge asset on our team. That's what I wish every single recruiter in the world would take those 10 minutes. So I'm asking you, Scotty, spread the word among all recruiters to take those 10 minutes, right? Look past a career break on a resume, take those 10 minutes and understand that the person in front of you has amazing skills, amazing talents, amazing personal characteristics that they will bring to the workforce and be dynamic on your teams. And so as we do that is we're a little bit more open to bringing in the diversity, bringing in that broad representation, and then taking the time to get to know each other so we all feel that sense of belonging, we're going to be so much more successful. And that's the goal of everything that we do at Tech Moms.
Hard not to just call that a mic drop and end on that note, Robbyn. But no, again, I think that's all that is just incredible. And I mean, I will say as a recruiter, to your point, just going back to what I do every day, I believe that it is incumbent upon us. It's not always easy because we're not always as influential with the hiring managers,
Yeah.
especially depending on what that dynamic looks like. So maybe we need to speak to hiring managers in addition to recruiters out there. But
Recruiters and hiring managers, I call on all of you.
there we go. There we go. You heard it. You've heard it here first from
Yes.
Robbyn Scribner. No, but I think that, yeah, having the conversation is so critical. And to your point, there's a lot that does happen in my industry based on what we see on paper, right? Just what we see on, I've often said, you can maybe get 10% of what somebody brings to the table by what you're looking at on their resume or their LinkedIn. It's just not enough. So it's hard and it's not always possible. You can't always do it. But if you're ever on the fence, take the time to have the conversation,
Yeah.
right? Take the time to just speak to somebody and you will, generally speaking, you'll get, I mean, it's obvious, right? You're going to get so much more than what you just get on paper. So anyway, that'd be my only kind of, the only thing I would add to what you just said. We're running up on a time deadline here relatively soon. There's one other thing that you had alluded to in the last comment you made that I want to speak about. You talked about career breaks. You had a career break. Obviously, a lot of the tech moms do. Can you talk about another one of your what seeming hobby horses, something you're an expert on, and that's career re-entry? So how do you come back into the workforce after that career break?
Yes. So, this is again, this is my life's work. This is my passion. So we only have a few more minutes, but I'm going to talk for 6 hours right now on all of this. No, one of the things that we find again, and it is frustrating because there is a stigma. There are some barriers, some real barriers that women feel. One of the things I created an online course called Career Relaunch for Women. I did it in partnership with the Utah Women in Leadership Project. Anybody can go take this class. It's a 2-part class, about 6, 8 hours total.
Can
Tons
you
and
repeat
tons.
it one more time?
Yes. It's called Career Relaunch for Women, and it's offered on the Utah State University Extension, like online classes site
Okay.
through the Utah
I'm
Women
going
in
to go
Leadership
out on a
Project.
limb here and say we're going to link that
Oh
in
yeah,
the show notes.
do it. It's a really great course. If I do say so myself, there's so much good information in there, right?
Perfect.
One of the things that I talk about in the very beginning of the course is that when women are facing a career reentry, they feel a bunch of deficits. And I talked about 5 deficits. Women feel a lack of direction. They don't know what they want to do next, right? When they go back to work, they feel a lack of preparation. Like, I don't have a resume ready. I don't know what to do. I don't have a LinkedIn. They feel a lack of network, which this is totally true for so many women. They haven't kept their professional lives relevant as they've been away, and their own networks relevant. They have a lack of skills. And again, in some cases, this might be really true if you don't know how to use Slack or Zoom, but everybody knows how to use Zoom right now if you have lived in the world in the last 3 years. But there might be some skills that you're honestly lacking that you need to rebuild. But then the fifth one is a lack of confidence. And this is
Hmm.
the hugest issue that so many women feel. So I mentioned before that my superpower is helping women uncover their own potential and what they can bring to the workforce. I want to tell you about a conversation that I had with a friend of mine. I've known this woman for like 15 years. We have kids that are the same age. We've been on soccer sidelines forever. This woman has like 9 kids. She has been the director of a soccer club. So done all this administrative and executive decision making and logistical tasks and all these other things. She is now doing elder care for a parent. So, like real medical tasks, other things that she's doing every day. So, I was catching up with her recently and saying, tell me a little bit about what's going on. And she was telling me that she never finished her college degree before she had those 9 kids. And then we talked about some of the things that she's been doing. And I told her what I did for a living. And she said, Robbyn, I'm going to need your help because it's time for me to go back to work and I can't do anything, right? So after everything that I know about this woman, the amazing things that she's done, the life that she has lived, to hear her say with all sincerity, I can't do anything. And I literally did. I put both my hands on her shoulders and I said, did you hear what you just said? This culture that we have created that tells women that their experiences, that their knowledge, that their skills, that their expertise that they have gained in non-paid settings is somehow irrelevant and useless and worthless is like the such a crime against humanity, right? And it's making me cry a little bit because I know that my friend is incredible. Now, luckily, she had me, and I'm a really great cheerleader, and I could talk to her for 5 minutes and go, here's what you can do, here's what you can do, here's what you can do, right? And we all need someone like that who can look at us clearly, see us a little bit better than we see ourselves, and recognize how much we have to bring. So that's one of the things that we do at Tech Moms with my workforce reentry course is we work through all those deficits, right? The lack of direction. We talk about career exploration. We talk about getting prepared by building a great resume, by building a great LinkedIn profile. We talk about all the thousands of ways there are to build current relevant workforce skills, and we talk about building your network, of course, my favorite topic in the entire world. And then through all those steps, we help women to rebuild their confidence by seeing the things in themselves that they are not yet able to see, and helping them recognize that. And then we help them communicate those to
Mm.
hiring managers and recruiters so they can say, I know that I've been out of the workforce for 7 years, but let me tell you what I did, and let me tell you what I can do for your company. So I'm so passionate about workforce reentry. I know that it's an absolute necessity for so many families. This economy, can I just say, it's it's crazy. And so many women, have to come back to the workforce before they even plan to, before they were ready. But we're ready to help them get ready. And we need everybody to work together and recognize what these women bring and give them a chance to prove how truly valuable they're going to be to every company that they join.
That's the mic drop moment right there, Robbyn. I appreciate everything that you shared today. I think, needless to say, everyone should check out Tech Moms. Whether you're a potential candidate to join and be one of the cohorts in Tech Moms, or whether you want to help, your organization get some incredible talent and diversify the thought of the organization, with some people who've, likely gone through career breaks and are now ready to get back into the get back on the horse, so to speak. So, Robbyn, thank you so much. Again, it's a little bit different than some of the conversations that I've had prior. I didn't ask some of the questions I would have liked. That being said, I thought we covered a lot. I want to give you the final word with regard to anything we missed today, anything you'd like our audience, and our audience, as far as we know, is primarily, technical people here in Utah. Anything you'd like to say that we didn't cover already?
No, I just love for people to learn a little bit about what we're doing at Tech Moms, find a way to get involved. We use volunteers in lots of different settings. So if you're interested in supporting the work that we're doing, come find us at tech-moms.org. You can link that as well to the podcast, and just see how you can get involved. There are One of the main ways that everybody can help us out at Tech Moms is by networking with our women and connecting with them when they reach out to you on LinkedIn, coming to our networking events, having conversations with them. That is hugely powerful to our women as they embark on their journeys.
Awesome. Thanks again. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Great to
All
talk
right.
to you, Scotty.
Thanks all for joining. Okay. See you next time.